And it looks like you didn't. And now you were in good company. There were a lot of people just like you who did what you did, who discriminated against churches, who defended it and said, well, it's a necessity. It's a necessity. But what that tells me is when push comes to shove, you think the First Amendment is optional. It's not optional. And I haven't voted for a single person who shut down churches. And I'm sure as heck not going to vote for you. And I'll just say to what remains of this administration, if you keep sending people up here who voted to shut down churches and openly discriminated against people of faith, you're going to get this reaction every darn time. You should be telling me you regret this. It was an error. It was unconstitutional. You shouldn't have made those arguments. In retrospect, you regret it. That would be the answer you should have given. You didn't, and you will not have my vote.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a heated Senate hearing where Senator Josh Hawley grilled a nominee over church closures during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's an intense debate about religious freedom, government restrictions, and essential businesses. Curious why Walmart and Lowe's stayed open while churches closed? Stick around. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another breakdown like this one. Let's get into it. Senator Hawley questioned the nominee, a state solicitor general during the pandemic, about an executive order that the nominee had to defend in court. Hawley didn't hold back. Hawley's big concern? He challenged the logic of treating religious institutions differently from big retail chains, especially when stores were crowded. The executive order allowed essential businesses like Walmart and Lowe's to operate. Meanwhile, churches had to hold services outdoors or not at all. Hawley argued that religious institutions were unfairly targeted. It's a big First Amendment issue and he wasn't letting it slide. The nominee defended the order, citing legal precedents and Supreme Court decisions. He mentioned Chief Justice Roberts' decision allowing retail stores to remain open due to short-lived interactions, but Hawley wasn't buying it. He argued the defense prioritized big business over religious freedom. The nominee was just following the law, but Hawley felt those laws discriminated against religious groups. The state, along with the nominee, chose not to appeal the decision. According to the nominee, it was the best course of action. Hawley wanted the nominee to express regret for defending the policy. He argued that in difficult times like COVID, people's constitutional rights should be protected. Hawley made it clear he won't support anyone who defended shutting down churches while keeping big businesses open. To him, it's a matter of civil liberties. This hearing raised tough questions. Should churches have been treated the same as retail businesses during the pandemic? Did states go too far in restricting religious gatherings while letting stores like Walmart operate?
What the Supreme Court held about a year later, and the point I'm trying to make
I'm asking
is that,
you,
yes,
was it a mistake for you to argue to this court that it was fine to close these churches, but Lowe's and Walmart could be open? Do you regret it?
Senator, I had a duty to represent my
So
client.
you don't regret it? You have the benefit of retrospect now. Do you regret it?
Senator, I don't think it would be appropriate for me to criticize the policy decisions that I was asked to
So you have no problem with it. Here's what else you told the court. You also told the court that if a church raised an objection to this, if the church said, no, we think we need to meet indoors, who did they have to answer to? They had to explain themselves to the sheriff or local law enforcement, the cops. And the cops would then make a determination about the church's theology. Do you remember that? Do you remember that?
Yes, Senator.
Yeah. And so do you remember what the court said about that?
So the court enjoined the governor's order in that respect.
The court says this court has grave concerns about how that answer, your answer, comports with the free exercise clause. Then the court went on to say that, you couldn't enforce the law. Why not? The government cannot treat, I'm quoting, cannot treat religious worship as a world apart from non-religious activities with no good, or more importantly, no constitutional explanation. What do you have to say about that?
Senator, after that TRO order was entered, in consultation with my client, we chose not to appeal at a time when it was abundantly clear that we would have prevailed on appeal, because the prevailing law at the time was Chief Justice Roberts' concurrence in South Bay. And so I actually think that reflects...
Well, so you were doing, you're saying that you really were doing churches a favor by making these arguments for them, by shutting them down, while Lowe's and Walmart and bars and who knows what else were all open?
Well, Senator, I didn't design that policy.
You defended it, and you just sat here and told me you don't have any regrets about it. Here's the deal. I've seen a parade of people sit in your seat who did the same thing, the same exact thing. Our respect for our rights, our constitutional rights, our civil liberties, they're not tested when it's easy. They're tested when it's hard. After 9/11, we found out who really believed in civil liberties and who didn't. In the COVID era, we found out who believed in the right to free exercise and who didn't. And it looks like you didn't. And now you were in good company. There were a lot of people just like you who did what you did, who discriminated against churches, who defended it and said, well, it's a necessity. It's a necessity. But what that tells me is when push comes to shove, you think the First Amendment is optional. It's not optional. And I haven't voted for a single person who shut down churches. And I'm sure as heck not going to vote for you. And I'll just say to what remains of this administration, if you keep sending people up here who voted to shut down churches and openly discriminated against people of faith, you're going to get this reaction every darn time. You should be telling me you regret this. It was an error. It was unconstitutional. You shouldn't have made those arguments. In retrospect, you regret it. That would be the answer you should have given. You didn't, and you will not have my vote.
What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you side with Hawley's argument about religious freedom, or do you think the nominee did the right thing by defending the policy? I'd love to hear your take on this. And if you found this breakdown helpful, hit like and subscribe for more deep dives into big issues. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.